Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my first impression reaction slash reading of Kagurabachi. So this might come as a massive surprise to you, because I am one who has pretty consistently noted that I tend to not like manga as a medium. Comics for the most part as well. There are exceptions. The Legend of Korra comics, I find myself really able to get into. Certain MLP comics I can get into. And then, like, the very rare occasional Batman comic. It just depends on the comic. But for the most part, I can't get into comics and manga, even for a series that I absolutely adore, like One Piece, because for me, a lot of the appeal of these series comes down to things that can't be replicated in the medium of manga or comics. And that comes down to sound design, voice acting, visual animation, etc. Things that for a lot of these series, I feel are almost kind of like necessary. One Piece is as great as it is partially because of that stuff. Because of the amazing voice acting that sells every scene. You don't get that in the manga. Because of the animation that makes these moves look larger than life. Even with great art that you get from Oda Sensei, you don't get that in the manga. The sound design and soundtrack that heightens the emotions of every moment. You don't get that in the manga. And there's a lot of people who will say things like, oh, but you can just imagine the voices, you know what they sound like in the anime and whatnot, you can just imagine them saying these things. And it's like, maybe it's just me, but my brain doesn't work like that. And I've never been able to explain this, but for like regular like chapter books, I'm fine. I'm fine with regular chapter books, but for some reason when the images are added in, when it's a comic, it for some strange reason creates this disconnect between my brain and the media, the comic, the story, where it's like it just I like, for example, in emotional moments I don't get emotional no matter what emotion it is. The biggest example I tend to use is with One Piece and the I Want to Live scene for Robin, a scene that even thinking about in the manga makes me emotional, or thinking about in the anime makes me emotional, and definitely every time I've seen it in the anime, and I've seen it a lot. Even just watching that scene over and over on YouTube, every single time it makes me cry. But every single time I've read it in the manga, doesn't do anything for me. It does literally nothing. Not a single bit of emotion. And again, I can't explain it. Maybe it has to do with my autism. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But for the most part, comics and manga do nothing for me. I don't get excited. I don't get, like, invested. I don't get emotional. And that's why I tend not to read them. So, all of this setup, and you're probably asking, okay, so then why are you doing this first impression reading of Kagurabachi? Why are you checking this new series out? It's like pretty much brand new. If you're convinced you're not going to like it. And the thing is, I'm checking it out purely because of the hype. This series is reaching like top 10 status with just its first couple chapters. It's got like 3 chapters out, and it's already reaching like exceptionally high numbers, and that's insane. Like, I mean, like it's reaching the level of anime that have been out for decades and everything. That's how impressive it's doing. And I'm kind of curious as to why. I don't know if this will be made into an anime. It probably will. But who knows how long that will take. Because if they do it too soon, they're going to run into a problem that a lot of anime have run into. And that's they're going to outrun the manga and have to create their own anime original shit, which a lot of people don't like. And with a series as popular as this has become, and only, again, 3 chapters, that would piss people off if you did that. So they'd have to at least wait for there to be enough material for a full season of anime, even if it's just a single core. And so I want to check it out and see if I can see what all the hype is about. See if I can figure it out based on the perspective of someone who doesn't normally read manga. From someone who doesn't normally enjoy manga. And I want to be honest with you, I have read manga. I've read a lot of manga. I've read a good amount of One Piece. I've read pretty much up to the end of Alabasta. I've read a good amount of Bleach. I've read a good amount of Naruto. I've read all of Fruits Basket. I've read a lot of manga. Back when I was in middle school and high school, I would rent manga from the school library because, yes, my school libraries had manga. And I would rent them, and I would read them. And for the most part, it didn't really do anything to me besides introduce me to a lot of these shows to check out the anime for. It's funny because a lot of people say that the anime is a advertisement for the manga. For me, it kind of worked the opposite. The manga was an advertisement for the anime and was what got me into checking out the anime instead. Pretty much every time. So that's an interesting little fun fact for you there. But yeah, I want to see what this is about and see if I can see why it's popular based on the manga, based off of someone whose perspective is very different regarding manga. And it's been a long time since I've tried to read manga. I've read some comics in more recent years. I was doing the Lackadaisy reactions, for example. I've read a couple MLP comics, Legend of Korra comics. But it's been quite a long time since I've tried to legitimately read manga. So this is going to be something interesting. Now, I will be redirecting this because from what I've gathered from other content creators on YouTube, manga can and does get copyright attacked. And in fact, manga can actually be sometimes worse than anime for that. And it's like, I am not risking that shit. I am going to be redirecting this just like I do with all my reactions. And we're probably going to be going through just chapter 1, but maybe we'll continue on after that. It's hard to say with manga, because with anime, it's just I do one episode. But manga tends to, you tend to be able to get through it a lot quicker. A lot quicker. So, we'll see how it goes, and I'll judge it based on that. But, in the meantime, we're just going to get this started. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, or reading, or whatever you want to call it. And after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the manga. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, the story of this based on this first chapter seems to be we follow Chihiro, the son of a legendary katana forger who was known for forging weapons for a massive war and had a belief that katana should only be wielded by good people, and that you should never let them be wielded by evil. And he's training Chihiro to take over, even though he seemed like he didn't want to. And then it skips ahead 3 years. We see Chihiro and his and a family friend. They're going into the city and are going to confront this Yakuza group, who are, absolutely fucked up and terrible, because typical Yakuza group. Chihiro sees how evil they are with the fact that they're stringing up people to make a statement. And so, with the friend's help, he goes to their base and just massacres all of them. The only one who's left alive by the end is the leader, but he's obviously going to die. And, of course, Chihiro is taking on his father's ideals of not wanting evil to use these katana, especially because we find out that the big secret of his father's katana work is that he imbued them with sorcery, which is pretty interesting, because sorcerers apparently exist. We see a sorcerer kind of help the Yakuza torture this dude for information. And we see that the Yakuza are going to, kidnap her little sister to use as motivation for getting that information. But that's when Chihiro comes in and saves the day. Chihiro's personality seems kind of flat. He doesn't emote a lot. He seems to have emotions, he just doesn't physically emote. He seems to always have pretty much the same expression. He also has this scar that wasn't on him 3 years back. It's never explained how he got it, at least not in this first chapter. But he expresses that while apparently he could get it healed, I assume maybe with sorcery, he decides to keep it because when he wakes up in the morning and looks at himself in the mirror, it fuels his anger. I'm wondering if that has to do with his father's death. It probably does. And now he's after this group of sorcerers who are funding this Yakuza gang. And he apparently is becoming sort of like this vigilante force. Like I said in the reaction and all, the art, very good. Like I said, that was never an issue I had with manga. But I felt like a lot of this reaction, was kind of dead. You know what I mean? A lot of it was just like me, going, yeah, that's... And just reading what they're saying. Because... how do you react to manga? It's just you're just reading what they're saying, maybe noting a couple things about the imagery. It's just yay? Reacting to an active medium like this that you have to actively read through is very difficult to do and make it entertaining. When you're reacting to a passive medium like an anime or a movie or something that you're watching, it's a very different experience because you don't have to do anything. And everything that you're reacting to is visual, is audio, everything is on the screen for you. You don't have to interpret panels and whatnot and figure things out and lean in to try and read every bit of dialogue and whatnot because the screen doesn't let you see enough of it, at least for me with my setup and all. Um, it's just it's an unenjoyable experience to record, and I can't imagine it's that much more entertaining to watch. Like when you're watching an anime or whatnot, again, a movie, a cartoon, it feels like there's a lot more I can actually actively react to. In this, there's just a lot of dead space where it's just me making a blank expression at whatever is happening. And that probably partially goes into what I was saying in the pre-thoughts. The fact that manga and comics for the most part don't really get any emotion out of me. And again, I can't explain why, but they just don't do anything for me. And I'm just not able to connect with the story and the characters. And I feel that was very much the case here. I feel like a lot of this chapter, for example, um, Chihiro cutting people down and attacking them, all the different like sorcery we saw. I feel like it would look amazing in animation. Seeing the fluid sword strikes, seeing the roots of the sorcery like literally like pop up, seeing how the sorcery is being imbued by Chihiro into his katana. This would look fantastic and everything in animation, but in still images, it's bland and doesn't hold weight or interest to me. Nothing about it seems anything special. It's like because with the infusion of the sorcery, I can imagine it looking something like I don't know, Tanjiro's water techniques in Demon Slayer. As much as I didn't like the story and characters and whatnot of that series, the animation looked absolutely gorgeous, and I can imagine it looking the same for Kagurabachi. But we don't get that with the manga. We just get good art, but it's so static. And it just does nothing to hook the readers in other than rely on its story. And the story, honestly, it's nothing special to me. It seems very generic. Like I've seen this kind of thing time and time again. Not necessarily the specifics of this, but the basic idea. Like vigilante swordsmen and stuff are in a lot of different manga slash anime. Imbuing swords with special powers, oh yeah, been done plenty. It's like having a mysterious scar that has a deep meaning for you. Yeah, Avatar did that. It's like this is not new stuff at all. And again, it's not enough to really hook me in, considering the lack of animation, of music, of voice acting that would, without question, elevate literally every moment in this first chapter. It would be elevated so much by just having any of that, but all of it especially. And without having it, it's just kind of boring. Um, but again, that's kind of the case with most things. And again, I don't know if it's just some issue with myself, but like I can't like watch this and see like sound effects described in the manga panels and just automatically understand how that's going to sound. My mind just does not work that way. If it's something like I'm super invested in and everything, I can kind of hear it in my head. Like, for example, I talked about Legend of Korra, how the Legend of Korra comics I actually enjoy. For those who might not know, I'm huge into Legend of Korra. I'm a really big Korra fan. I actually like it more than The Last Airbender. So when I read the comics, I know exactly what these characters sound like. I know what the sound of their bending sounds like. I know what their movements look like. So my brain connects with it a lot easier when reading the comic because of that. Because even though that motion, those sounds and everything aren't in the comic, my brain thinks back to the series, which I've watched many, many, many times, and makes those connections for me. And the problem is, this doesn't happen with a lot of things, because take a superhero thing, for example. Let's say I'm reading a Superman comic. There are so many Superman things out there, live action, cartoon, etc. My mind wouldn't know where to go to. So it just doesn't make a connection. It's like, oh, do I think that, would my mind think of Superman the animated series? Would it think of Man of Steel? Would it think of one of the animated movies? Where does it go to? Where does it go to get this information on how the characters sound, what their movements sound like? Because it's different every time. With Legend of Korra, there is one strict sound to it. So that's why even like superhero comics I can't really mostly get into. And why the ones that I mostly can are Legend of Korra and MLP. But then you would also think that that would work for something like One Piece then, because I've seen One Piece a shit ton of times. I know what the characters sound like, and I know what the sound effects are like and everything. But for some reason, whenever I would try to read One Piece, nothing, absolutely nothing. No emotion, no interest, no enjoyment. It does nothing for me. And again, I can't explain it. And it's just the same kind of thing here with Kagurabachi's first chapter. It's not that I disliked it. It's not that I disliked it at all. It's just that I felt nothing. And honestly, I would say it leans more towards dislike, just because I feel the story is just very generic and didn't do anything to hook me in. I feel like if this was animated, if it was an anime, I would have been able to get into it a lot more. Maybe not completely, but a lot more. But there's nothing investing about it. I wanted to try doing this because I was hoping, maybe because of how popular this is, this series would be able to do something, or even say something, like have some kind of message that I could really get behind and really just enjoy, even without the need of visual animation and audio and whatnot. But that wasn't the case. Again, it just kind of had the same effect as pretty much every manga, for the most part, that I've read. It does nothing for me. So when the anime eventually does come out, because it's obviously going to get an anime adaptation, I will probably check that out. I will give that a shot and see how it compares, as well as just what I think of it with the animation, with the audio work and everything. And maybe I'll end up liking it through the medium of anime. But here, it does nothing for me. And leans more toward the negative, just because the story is super generic, and it's the only thing I really have to talk about. It's the only thing I really have any thoughts on. So, but yeah, for this first impression, we obviously aren't going to be continuing to read this. I'm not interested. It clearly just did not prove my dislike for manga wrong. It's just very bland as an experience. But at least I gave it a shot, right? So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes, and when it gets a manga, or when it gets an anime, I'll probably check it out then. For the time being, though, tell me what are your thoughts on the first chapter of Kagurabachi? For now, though, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.